Hey guys, welcome back to Chaos Core Tech. My name's Garrett, and this is part 2 to my Blender tutorial on modifiers. If you want to see the last video, I'll put an eye up in the corner, and I will also put the video down in the description. You can check it out. The video ended up being way too long, so I just cut it somewhere in the middle, and this is part 2 to that video. In this one, we're going to go over a few more modifiers and actually how to Boolean things together. So hopefully it'll be interesting for you, and don't forget to leave your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on all this. And let's just get started. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Continuing on with these modifiers, one of the things we can do is, let me just move this over so it's interacting with this object. I'm going to add an array modifier. So now you can see that there are 2 of these, but if I tab into edit mode, I am still just affecting the one. If I edit it, it will edit all of the arrayed objects. And once again, all of the panels are right here. We can adjust the count to adjust how many of them there are. I'm going to go with 3, and right now they are patterning along the X. I'm going to change that to Y, and you can see right here in the factor, I'm going to change the X to 0 and the Y to 1. Oops. And something that I do frequently, that was the wrong axis, so ignore that, change the Y to 0, the Z to 1, and now we have these patterning up. And this is a percentage base, so 1 is basically 1 width of the object. And that can also get kind of weird because if I go in and edit the object, they will space further apart because the object is now bigger. But I actually want these just a little bit further apart. So I'm going to change this to 1.1. And now you can see there's just a little bit of space between them. And I actually want more than this on there. I want to array in the other direction as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move these over, and I'm going to add another array modifier. And you can see that now it pushes them out that way. If I scroll down, you'll see the second array modifier. I'm going to use the y-axis, so 0 on the x, 1 on the y. And actually I'll do 1.1 as well, so we have the same amount of space. And I'm going to bump the count up to 3. So now you can see we have this grid, and I will switch to the side view so I can just line this up a little bit better. And now we have this grid of 9 of these things, whatever they are. And that is because of the 2 arrays. So think of this as the z-axis array, and then the second one is the y-axis array. And you can keep adding these as much as you want. So if I wanted to, I could add another array modifier and have them go out in the X as well. And keep in mind that these are all still the exact same mesh. So I can do whatever I want to these. I can make these weird shapes if I want to. And just affecting the one will change all of them. So you can see how powerful it can be very quickly. You can combine meshes, but like here I'll give an example. I'll create a cube. It's over. I'm going to duplicate it and just make sure that they're overlapping a little bit. So I'm going to click both of these by shift clicking. I'm going to hit Control J. They technically become one object, but as you can see in here, they haven't actually fused, and I can still pull them apart. So if I were to export this for 3D printing, these would not actually work this way. These are still 2 cubes. They will just be they will try to print over each other, and that is not how we do that. And most slicing software will complain about this type of thing and not let you do it. So something to keep in mind, that Control J is a nice way to get objects together, but these objects are not actually fused. So I'm going to hit X and delete that. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of online classes covering all sorts of different topics. There's a premium membership that gives you full access to the classes, so if you're trying to pick up a new creative skill, Skillshare can help you with all of the skills you want to learn. It's a great place to fuel your creativity and point you in the right direction. For example, I've really been wanting to sharpen my drawing abilities lately, And something that's crucial for both 2D drawing and 3D modeling is knowing anatomy. Luckily, Jazza has a new series called the 28-Day Drawing Challenge Anatomy for Illustration in Comics. He's really good at breaking things down and demonstrating how to apply these ideas to your work. Also, I know that a lot of people with 3D printers want to learn how to 3D model, and there are a ton of 3D modeling courses for a wide variety of programs like Blender, Maya, ZBrush, and even CAD programs. So whether you're trying to learn something new or improve your knowledge on an existing skill, Skillshare is an extremely useful tool. It's curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. The first 1,000 people to click the link in the description below or use the code ChaosCoreTech will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can explore your creativity. Thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. To step away from the modifiers for just a second, if you come up to Edit and Preferences, there is a button on the left-hand side that is called Add-Ons. Click that, and you will be greeted with this menu. And there's a lot of stuff in here. Once again, feel free to look into any of this on your own. But the one specifically that we are looking for is the Bool Tool. And you can see that I already have it installed. But just type Bool up here, Bool Tool, whatever you want, and click the check mark on this. And this basically just tells Blender to activate this Bool Tool. You don't need to download anything. This is included with Blender. It just is not activated by default. So just come in here, click that check mark, and you should be good to go. So now if I hit N, and it brings up this little panel over here where we have all of our information, dimensions, scale, rotation, everything like that, position. There is a tab now that is called Edit. And if I click this, you can see that there is now a Bool Tool option here. And Booleans, if you've ever used Fusion 360 or Tinkercad, that is a lot of what those programs are, so you should be very familiar with those. What I'm going to do is you basically have to click the first object and then shift click the second object. Now you'll notice that one is highlighted in a dark orange, maybe a little red, and the other one is a yellowish orange. The yellowish orange color is the active object, and the red ones are the extra objects. So whatever you do is going to apply to this main object. And you can see over here, if I were to add a modifier, it would add it to this cube and not this cube.001. But this is important, this order is important. So if I were to shift click this now, these little tube thingies become the main object. In this case, I don't think it matters too much which one is your main object. I'm going to make this big chunk the main object. And there's several things we can do at this point using the Bool tool. I don't use the brush Boolean, but just this auto Boolean here is what we're looking for. And something that I want to call out is this object here does not have any modifiers applied to it. We applied all of them ourselves. So this is just an object full of data. This one still has all of the modifiers applied. So if I tab into edit mode, you'll see that they are still just these weird cubes that have been rounded out and arrayed. Luckily, Blender can pretty much handle this for us. If we use one of these Bool options, it will automatically apply the modifiers, just like if we were to export it as an OBJ. Keep in mind that this is a per vertex type of operation, so it'll first go through and apply the modifiers and then try to stitch the objects together by welding all of the vertices that overlap and getting rid of all of the interior data. So it can be kind of a hefty operation. So if you have meshes that have a ton of vertices, it might crash Blender, it might bog down your computer, so just be aware that this is a sort of intensive process. But I'm going to click Union just to show you what it does. So I'll click and it'll chug for just a second because these do have a decent amount of polygons. And there it is. So now you'll see that these are one object. It is just cube up there. And I can tab into edit mode and you can see that these now have become stitched together. Now, some of these stitches can be pretty messy, and I'll show you a way of cleaning some of that up in the next video where we talk about exporting all of this. But now, these are all one object, and you can see there's no modifiers. It applied all of them. I'm going to undo back to the point where they are two separate objects, and I will show you how to subtract them as well. We just did union, where it combines these two objects, uses both of them to create a new object. So now if I click this and click difference, let it chug, you'll see that it cuts those holes out of this main object. And if I tab in, everything's been applied and we're good to go. But this is where the order that you select things comes into play, because notice that I have this big part selected as my main object. If I change that, select the big part first and then shift select the other part, if I do union, it'll still happen the same way, because when you're adding things, it doesn't matter the order. But in difference, it does matter. So if I click difference with that one selected, it will cut this big object away from these smaller objects. You can see that it cut it out. So it's very different, and it matters immensely which one you have as your active object. You can also intersect, which basically it only takes the parts that are intersecting of both objects. So you can kind of see if I select this, there's bits of this inside. So if I select both of them and click intersect, let it chug, it will only take the parts that have overlapped, which is kind of interesting and can come in handy in some situations. Okay, so I know that was a lot to throw at you guys, but just to reiterate, modifiers are non-destructive, so you have the original mesh intact no matter how many modifiers I put on it. Once you apply them, like I did to this one, it becomes destructive. And this Boolean tool, which I kind of, in my mind, it works along with the modifiers. It is a fully destructive process. So once I Boolean these together, I can no longer change the modifiers, change the number of these. So it's something that you need to keep in mind as you go through your workflow, that once you have Boolean things together, you kind of can't change them anymore. So in closing, let's just go over a few more of the modifiers. Those are the big ones. The array, bevel, and subdivision surface are the ones that I use the most. You can do some really cool things with the other ones. Mirror is a pretty good one. If you're making something that's symmetrical, you can mirror it. So it basically takes half of the model and creates an exact copy on the other side. That's nice. Decimate can be interesting, so I'm going to hide these just so they don't get in our way and bog things down. If I tab into edit mode, you can see that there's just a lot of vertices, and a lot of these really aren't necessary vertices, they're just kind of there. So if we wanted to optimize and not have this be so big, I can add a Decimate modifier, and it will take this and just remove some of the vertices. And you can destroy your model with this, that's why it's called Decimate, but it is something that is necessary to reduce poly count, because you can see right now I have almost 80,000, which isn't terrible in terms of models to 3D print, but for something like this, it does not need to be 80,000 polygons. So I'm gonna take this ratio and I'm gonna have it go down to 0.5, let it chug for a second, and everything looks, you really can't tell a difference in the model. So I might go down even further. So if I go 0.25, you can maybe start to notice it in some of these areas. You can see that they're no longer perfect little squares. But ultimately, if you were to take this, and depending on the size that you print it, you may not notice it. And now it's down to 30,000 polygons, which is much, much better. So if I tab into edit mode, this is what it looks like normally. But if I apply the modifier, now if I tab into edit mode, this is what it looks like, which is a lot messier, but it is a lot fewer polygons. You can also do wireframe, which something that's high poly does not benefit much from a wireframe. So if I were to take a mesh, let's do a cube. You know what? Not even a cube. Let's do a icosphere. That one's really fun. and I'm going to put a wireframe modifier on there. And you can see that it basically just takes all of the vertice data here, all of the edges, and solidifies them into a mesh. And once again, when you're in edit mode, you can change the shape of all of this. You can do anything you want to, like if I were to select all of these, inset them, bring that down, I can tab back out and you'll see that it is still applying that modifier to this. I'm going to make them just a little bit thicker. And this is a pretty cool shape. So like I said, you can do some very, very cool things with this. And whenever I'm done with it, I can just apply the modifier. And now if I tab into edit mode, you will see that all of these are actual vertices that I can move around. All right, everyone. Well, I know that was a lot of information, and this ended up going so long, so I'm probably going to split it into 2 videos. But hopefully modifiers are a little less mysterious. Like I said, they're very complicated to explain, but they're pretty simple at their core. There's just a lot of them, and they do really advanced stuff. So my best advice is just to mess with it. And if you don't understand one, go look up a tutorial, go look at more things. And before you know it, you'll be able to do some really, really crazy things with them. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you have a specific question in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them or address them in a future video. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how to take these objects and export them out of Blender to 3D print them, because there is kind of a process there, because Blender's not really built for 3D printing. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, get subscribed. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep creating.